Oh, and if you're watching this, there is a fantastic holiday hop over on Instagram. So feel free to check out my Instagram. It's with the Cat Scrappiness influencer crew. So I think that you will enjoy it. But this is how to make the project that you're probably looking at there. And this was inspired by Karen Titus, actually, one of her videos that I saw recently. So let me walk you through measurements on everything, and then we'll put it together and just sort of do a little chatting while we're doing that. So this big piece is 7.5 by 5.25. It is then scored at 1 3/4, 3.5, 5.25, and 7 on the long side. If you think these measurements sound familiar and remind you of the snowflake card we made, or I guess I should say the star card on World Card Making Day, they are almost identical. And then we have some pieces and layers. So these are 3.5 by 1 3/4, and these are 3.25 by 1.5. These are pulled from two different pads. The silver is pulled from the silver glitter pad, and then the ornaments are pulled from the Merry Grinchmas pad. There's also a holiday glitter pad as well if you want something that's got a little bit more color. I think they're teal and autumn, and there are a whole bunch of different pads available from Cat Scrappiness right now along the same lines. So what we're going to do with these score lines is basically burnish them, and we're making a box effectively. And once we have these burnished, it'll be easy to see here on this sort of shorter edge where our glue tab is. So we can just measure the glue tab for our own issues later so that we can make life a little bit easier for ourselves. And what we're going to do is just use adhesive to stick this down, and we're going to make a box. And that box is capable of folding flat. So using a lighter weight cardstock for this brown piece would definitely help you out. Then what we're going to do is basically get rid of our scraps, but we're going to take the smaller pieces and mat them on the slightly larger pieces. So you'll have sort of a look that looks like that. And I am just going to use internet magic to jump to when everything is all assembled and we can talk about putting the card together. Have returned. So we have allowed our main piece to dry for the tower card. Essentially, this will stand up or lay down. In terms of mailing, you can also flatten it to do that. And once I get this together, I kind of like to play with these because this card is going to have a lot of movement. So I want to make sure it all goes together. And what we're going to do is take essentially two of our panels, and we're going to take two of one and one of the other, and we're going to adhere them like this. So the ends kind of hang off, and then you have the ability to have the panels interlock. I think this is actually easier to do with double-sided tape. I tend to be more of a wet glue person, obviously, because I think it gives you more control. But here, I think it's just kind of nice to be able to stick stuff down and be done with it. So I just threw some double-sided tape on one of these sides, and I basically just need to true up everything. You can, of course, you can use different tools to do this if you want to be like super duper accurate. I tend to like to do the top and the bottom, and then I feel like the middle sort of falls into place. Um, but it is sort of up to you. And of course, wet glue would work for this too. And then just make sure you have good adherence. You can actually bring in like a bone folder to help um, burnish. And you should pay attention to where your top and bottom is if you're using a directional paper, which I am. But basically, we're going to just make sure this is in the middle and trued up here, and then we will push it down. And the nice thing about the double-sided tape is that this basically is stuck down now. So as we fold, what we're going to do is move on to the next section. So here we see that um, this section we're going to want, again, a piece in the middle. So we're going to want one piece in the middle here. and then 2 extending in the other direction. So I'm just going to come back in with my tape and get a little extra scrap. One thing I didn't mention earlier is if you want to make this less of a centerpiece and more of kind of a card, what you can do is rather than using pattern paper for a couple of these, you can actually just use like non-pattern paper. What's the word I'm looking for? A colored cardstock, and so let's get this lined up. You can just use colored cardstock, and that will also work nicely for that. And so here we go. You can see how this is going to go together. So I'm going, since I cut 6 of each pattern, I am then going to, and I didn't do what I suggested for you to do, but anyway, if this, what can happen if you get these a little out of line is that they can kind of snag, which is what happened here. I could go in and trim this down a little bit. The downside to the tape is that once it's down, it's like it's pretty down, and you're unlikely to be able to move it around. But I think we'll be fine. And then we will go get our bottom piece on, and you can kind of see how this is all going to go together. You're going to have this really neat sort of oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in camera. So you're going to have this really neat sort of uh, intermixing of the various colors. And I didn't really add any bling just because, and then just to show you, like that's it, then this will fold flat for mailing or anything else for that matter. Um, which can be nice, especially if you want to write a message on one of these places. You also have sort of these hidden panels that you can use for stuff as well. But so we'll move that over, and then we will move this over, and then we are just going to keep repeating with this particular pattern. And we have 2 more segments, and then we should be good. And I'm just going to keep intermixing these. This last side, I used 2 of these. So on this side, I will use 2 of the silver glitter ones. And I will do what I suggested, which is if you get the 2 bottom pieces together, or I should say the top and bottom are easier to line up than the middle piece. So typically I would say do that first. And then you can come back in with the middle piece. And this is kind of, and here we have better clearance, so you can see that this one just folds quite nicely. And then we just want to flatten down on this side. And this one is the only really tricky side to deal with, but basically you can glue so the piece that extends this way you can glue down first and just be careful to not get these stuck. And then you can't. Actually, I think this one I'll just do with wet glue because I think it will be um, just somewhat easier to get these pieces down without causing issues. But you can do either or both in each place. Basically, this last one is the only one that's slightly tricky to get down. So we will glue that here, and then when this pops up, oops. Well, actually, what we can do is, oh, I see what happened. This one was a little wider again, so that's why this sort of popped up. Um, and I'm just going to do this way for the sake of time. But what you can actually do is once the middle piece is down, you can just fold this, and then this is just sort of just like all the other sides where we just need to, oops, just line this up, and we want to make sure we don't overextend here. There we go. I'll give that a moment to dry. And that's pretty much it. It gives you a really neat, I didn't really or I didn't really pay attention to how the patterns were cut, but if you wanted to do a scene here, this does give you the ability to, cut that as well. You just have to be a little more careful, but this is how it stands up, and it's a really impressive look, I think, once you're done. You can certainly go through and add some additional bling if you would like. I was just thinking I didn't do it, but, like, a glitter mousse would be neat to use, like, a star or a snowflake stencil and stencil over this to kinda pull some of the silver in. But you can do a bunch of different things, um, depending on what you like. I really like sort of the side of this where you can see both of the patterns at once. But, but yeah, this is a tower card, and some of my friends have done other ones of these. This is how it could then you can like it just folds completely flat for storage. And then if you could use one of these sides also as like your place to write the message, if you would say use sort of a cream as opposed to the pattern paper, and then you could write something on here. But that is the project for today. And let me know what you think. If you have thoughts, feel free to leave them down below because it's always interesting to hear your guys' opinions on things.